Hinata turned away from the peaceful view of the sunset over her family's small pond ringed by persimmon trees and back to her parents' bedroom. She swept her eyes over the harmonious neutral tones and traditional brushwork paintings on the walls. For all the wealth her father had gathered through his business dealings, her mother shied away from ostentatious shows of wealth and preferred traditional, simple, clean lines. The only concession Mother allowed Father was the huge wooden canopy bed in the Western style, facing the sliding doors with rice paper panes that slid away to reveal the serene pond view. And in the middle of that bed, on clouds of crisp white linens, lay her mother, propped up on a thick mound of pillows, like an empress of old on her throne. She was dying. Hinata's mother had actually been dying for quite some time, a mysterious illness eating away at her slowly, like it was savoring a rich meal at the finest restaurant. But the time had finally come. Father sent for doctor after doctor, even expensive doctors from the West, and they all agreed. Kana Tanaka did not have long to live, and there was nothing that could be done. The most they could do was make her comfortable as she declined. Father became so desperate at that point he even called in an old herbal woman. The moment she walked into the bedroom, she turned and walked out, murmuring about Shinigami standing at the head of the bed. Father raged at her retreating back, a rare display of temper Hinata had only seen twice before. But the old woman only shook her head sadly and told him to enjoy what time he had left with his wife. Approaching the bed with her arms around her middle, Hinata examined her mother's face. Even with all the ravages of illness, she was still beautiful. Or perhaps it only seemed that way to Hinata. She could not remember a day without her mother's gentle presence, her quiet love, the steadfast nurturing that seemed endless. She sighed as she took a washcloth from the bowl of water on the nightstand, giving it a gentle squeeze to make sure it wasn't too wet. Hinata tenderly wiped the damp cloth over her mother's lips. Hinata tenderly wiped the damp cloth over her mother's lips, moistening them and keeping to the old Buddhist tradition of care for the dying. Kana's lips moved and pressed into the wet cloth, as if to a lover, taking some of the wetness. Hinata felt her shoulders ease a bit as tears gathered in the corners of her eyes. It would be soon, but perhaps not dreadfully soon. Mother sighed and turned her head to the side, settling deeper into her pillows, her eyes still closed. Hinata returned the cloth to its dish and settled herself on her knees next to the bed and folded her hands in her lap. She tried not to weep. She tried to be good, to sit still, to be the dutiful daughter Father always told her she wasn't. But she couldn't hold still for long. She fidgeted and fingered the oil stains at the frayed edges of her kimono sleeves. Perhaps Father was right, and she was, and always would be, a disappointment. Hinata sighed and tried to push the thoughts of her father's quiet scowl out of her mind as she pulled her latest invention from the canvas bag on the floor next to her. She had been trying to think of something to impress her father, something to really stand out after a long string of failures, while she tried to help her mother with the household duties. Mother had always been indulgent of her daughter's absent-minded ways and mechanical proclivities. But as her illness grew worse, she had no choice but to coax Hinata into the kitchen and the laundry and away from her inventions. Hinata resisted as much as her filial duty would allow her in the beginning, until she realized she had a new set of challenges before her, new opportunities to invent. But things had not gone so well. The steam-powered washtub quickly scrubbed Father's favorite yukata to shreds against the washboard. The twirling drying line she designed to make laundry dry faster with gentle breezes spun too fast and flung laundry all over the yard and into the pond. Her brother's blue linen hakama were still missing. Hinata thought she almost had the automatic rake steamer perfected, but Father would not allow her to try again. Not after the last time, when it blew off the lid and put a hole in the roof. So Hinata bowed to her father and applied herself to the traditional way of doing things. While she would admit her domestic skills had improved significantly with practice, her rice would still not maintain the same perfect stickiness as Mother's, and her dumplings were not quite so tasty. Under her hand the laundry was clean, but not quite so perfect or without wrinkles as Mother could manage. She turned her latest invention over in her hands and examined it from every angle. If she was correct, it was finally done.